what could else, to our almighty foe clear victory, our part loss and rout through all the Empyrean. Down they fell, driven headlong from the pitch of heaven, down into the steep, and in the general fall I also, at which time this powerful key into my hand was given, with charge to keep these gates forever shut, which none can pass without my opening. Pensive here I sat alone, but long I sat not, till my womb pregnant by thee and now excessive grown, prodigious motion felt, and rueful throes. At last this odious offspring, whom thou seest thine own begotten, breaking violent way, tore through my entrails, that with fear and pain distorted, all my nether shape thus grew transformed. But he, my inbred enemy, forth issued, brandishing his fatal dart made to destroy. I fled and cried out, "Death!" Hell trembled at the hideous name and sighed from all her caves, and back resounded, "Death." I fled, but he pursued, though more, it seems, inflamed with lust than rage, and swifter far, me overtook his mother, all dismayed, and in embraces forcible and foul, engendering with me, of that rape begot these yelling monsters that with ceaseless cry surround me, as thou sawest, hourly conceived and hourly born, with sorrow infinite to me, for when they list into the womb that bred them, they return, and howl and gnaw my bowels their repast. Then bursting forth afresh with conscious terrors vex me round, that rest or intermission none I find. Before mine eyes in opposition sits grim death, my son and foe, who sets them on, and me his parent would full soon devour for want of other prey. But that he knows his end with mine involved, and knows that I should prove a bitter morsel, and his bane, whenever that shall be, so fate pronounced. But thou, O father, I forewarn thee, shun his deadly arrow, neither vainly hope to be invulnerable in those bright arms, though tempered heavenly, for that mortal dint, save he who reigns above, none can resist.
She finished, and the subtle fiend his lore soon learned, now milder, and thus answered smooth. Dear daughter, since thou claimest me for thy sire, and my fair son here showest me the dear pledge of dalliance had with thee in heaven, and joys then sweet, now sad to mention, through dire change befallen us unforeseen, unsought of. 'Tis know I come no enemy, but to set free from out this dark and dismal house of pain. Both him and thee, and all the heavenly host of spirits that in our just pretenses armed fell with us from on high. From them I go, this uncouth errand soul, and one for all myself expose, with lonely steps to tread the unfounded deep, and through the void immense to search with wandering quest a place foretold should be, and by concurring signs ere now created vast and round a place of bliss in the purlieus of heaven, and therein placed a race of upstart creatures to supply perhaps our vacant room, though more removed, lest heaven surcharged with potent multitude might hap to move new broils. Be this or aught than this more secret now designed, I haste to know, and this once known shall soon return, and bring ye to the place where thou and death shall dwell at ye. And up and down unseen wings silently the buxom air embalmed with odors. There ye shall be fed and filled immeasurably. All things shall be your prey.
He ceased, for both seemed highly pleased, and death grinned horrible a ghastly smile, to hear his famine should be filled, and blessed his maw destined to that good hour. No less rejoiced his mother bade, and thus bespake her sire. The key of this infernal pit by due and by command of heaven's all-powerful king I keep, by him forbidden to unlock these adamantine gates. Against all force, death ready stands to interpose his dart, fearless to be o'ermatched by living might. But what owe I to his commands above who hates me, and hath hither thrust me down into this gloom of Tartarus profound, to sit in hateful office here confined, inhabitant of heaven and heavenly born, here in perpetual agony and pain, with terrors and with clamors compassed round of mine own brood that on my bowels feed? Thou art my father, thou my author, thou my being gavest me. Whom should I obey but thee? Whom follow? Thou wilt bring me soon to that new world of light and bliss among the gods who live at ease, where I shall reign at thy right hand voluptuous, as beseems thy daughter and thy darling, without end.
Thus saying, from her side the fatal key, sad instruments of all our woe, he took, and towards the gate rolling her bestial train, forthwith the huge portcullis high updrew, which but herself not all the Stygian powers could once have moved. Then in the keyhole turns the intricate boards, and every bolt and bar of massy iron or solid rock with ease unfastens. On a sudden, open fly with impetuous recoil and jarring sound the infernal doors, and on their hinges great harsh thunder, that the lowest bottom shook of Erebus. She opened, but to shut excelled her power. The gates wide open stood, that with extended wings a bannered host under spread ensigns marching might pass through with horse and chariots ranked in loose array. So wide they stood, and like a furnace mouth cast forth redounding smoke and ruddy flame. Before their eyes in sudden view appear the secrets of the hoary deep, a dark, illimitable ocean without bound, without dimension, where length, breadth, and height, and time and place are lost, where eldest night and chaos, ancestors of nature, hold eternal anarchy amidst the noise of endless wars, and by confusion stand. For hot, cold, moist, and dry, four champions fierce strive here for mastery, and battle bring their embryon atoms. They around the flag of each his faction, in their several clans, light armed or heavy, sharp, smooth, swift, or slow, swarm populace, unnumbered as the sands of Barca or Kyrene's torrid soil, levied to side with warring winds and poise their lighter wings. To whom these most adhere, he rules a moment. Chaos umpire sits, and by decision more embroils the fray by which he reigns. Next him, high arbiter chance governs all. Into this wild abyss, the womb of nature, and perhaps her grave, of neither sea, nor shore, nor air, nor fire, but all these in their pregnant causes mixed confusedly, and which thus must ever fight, unless the Almighty Maker them ordain his dark materials to create more worlds. Into this wild abyss the wary fiend stood on the brink of hell and looked awhile, pondering his voyage, for no narrow frith he had to cross. Nor was his ear less peeled with noises loud and ruinous, to compare great things with small, than when Bellona storms with all her battering engines bent to raise some capital city, or less than if this frame of heaven were falling, and these elements in mutiny had from her axle torn the steadfast earth. At last his broad sail vans he spreads for flight, and in the surging smoke uplifted spurns the ground. Thence many a league, as in a cloudy chair ascending rides audacious, but that seat soon failing, meets a vast vacuity. All unawares, fluttering, his pennon's vein plumb down, he drops 10,000 fathom deep. And to this hour down had been falling, had not by ill chance The strong rebuff of some tumultuous cloud, instinct with fire and nitre, hurried him as many miles aloft. That fury stayed, quenched in a boggy Syrtis, neither sea nor good dry land, nigh foundered on he fares, treading the crude consistence, half on foot, half flying. Behooves him now both oar and sail, as when a griffin through the wilderness with winged course, or hill or moory dale, pursues the Arimaspian, who by stealth had from his wakeful custody purloined the guarded gold. So eagerly the fiend, or bog or steep, through strait, rough, dense, or rare, with head, hands, wings, or feet pursues his way, and swims, or sinks, or wades, or creeps, or flies.
At length, a universal hubbub wild of stunning sounds and voices all confused, borne through the hollow dark, assaults his ears with loudest vehemence. Thither he plies, undaunted to meet there whatever power or spirit of the nethermost abyss might in that noise reside, of whom to ask which way the nearest coast of darkness lies bordering on light, when straight behold the throne of chaos, and his dark pavilion spread wide on the wasteful deep. With him enthroned sat sable-vested night, eldest of things, the consort of his rang. And by them stood Orcus and Hades, and the dreaded name of Demogorgon, rumor next, and chance, and tumult and confusion all embroiled, and discord with 1,000 various mouths. To whom Satan, turning boldly thus: Ye powers and spirits of this nethermost abyss, chaos and ancient night, I come no spy, with purpose to explore or to disturb the secrets of your realm, but by constraint wandering this darksome desert, as my way lies through your spacious empire up to light. Alone and without guide, half lost, I seek what readiest path leads where your gloomy bounds confine with heaven. Or, if some other place from your dominion won, the ethereal king possesses lately, thither to arrive I travel this profound, direct my course. Directed, no mean recompense it brings to your behoof. If I that region lost, all usurpation thence expelled, reduced to her original darkness and your sway, which is my present journey, and once more erect the standard there of ancient night. Yours be the advantage, all mine the revenge.
Thus, Satan, and him thus the Anuc old, with faltering speech and visage incomposed, answered: I know thee, stranger, who thou art, that mighty leading angel, who of late made head against heaven's king, though overthrown. I saw and heard, for such a numerous host fled not in silence through the frighted deep, with ruin upon ruin, rout on rout, confusion worse confounded. And heaven's gates poured out by millions by her victorious bands pursuing. I upon my frontiers here keep residence. If all I can will serve, that little which is left so to defend, encroached on still through your intestine broils, weakening the sceptre of old night. First hell, your dungeon stretching far and wide beneath. Now lately, heaven and earth, another world hung o'er my realm, linked in a golden chain to that side heaven from whence your legions fell. If that way be your walk, you have not far, so much the nearer danger. Go and speed, havoc and spoil and ruin are my gain.
He ceased, and Satan stayed not to reply, but, glad that now his sea should find a shore, with fresh alacrity and force renewed, springs upward like a pyramid of fire into the wild expanse, and through the shock of fighting elements, on all sides round environed, wins his way. Harder beset and more endangered than when Argo passed through Bosporus betwixt the justling rocks, or when Ulysses on the larboard shunned Charybdis and by the other whirlpools steered. So he, with difficulty and labor hard, moved on, with difficulty and labor he. But he once passed, soon after, when man fell, strange alteration. Sin and death amain, following his track, such was the will of heaven, paved after him a broad and beaten way over the dark abyss, whose boiling gulf tamely endured a bridge of wondrous length, from hell continued, reaching the utmost orb of this frail world, by which the spirits perverse with easy intercourse pass to and fro to tempt or punish mortals, except whom God and good angels guard by special grace. But now at last, the sacred influence of light appears, and from the walls of heaven shoots far into the bosom of dim night a glimmering dawn. Here nature first begins her farthest verge, and chaos to retire, as from her outmost works, a broken foe, with tumult less, and with less hostile din, that Satan, with less toil, and now with ease, wafts on the calmer wave by dubious light, and like a weather-beaten vessel, holds gladly the port, though shrouds and tackle torn. Or in the emptier waste, resembling air, weighs his spread wings at leisure to behold, far off the empyreal heaven, extended wide in circuit, undetermined square around, with opal towers and battlements adorned of living sapphire, once his native seat. And fast by, hanging in a golden chain, this pendant world, in bigness as a star of smallest magnitude, close by the moon. Thither, full fraught with mischievous revenge, accursed, and in a cursed hour, he hies.
Book 3. Hail, holy light, offspring of heaven's firstborn, or of the eternal co-eternal beam, may I express thee unblamed. Since God is light, and never but in unapproached light dwelt from eternity, dwelt then in thee, bright effluence of bright essence increate. Or hearest thou rather pure ethereal stream, whose fountain who shall tell? Before the sun, before the heavens thou wert, and at the voice of God as with a mantle didst invest the rising world of waters dark and deep, one from the void and formless infinite. Thee I revisit now with bolder wing, escape the Stygian pool, though long detained in that obscure sojourn, while in my flight through utter and through middle darkness born, with other notes than to the Orphean lyre, I sung of chaos and eternal night, taught by the heavenly muse to venture down the dark descent, and up to reascend, though hard and rare. Thee I revisit safe, and feel thy sovereign vital lamp, but thou revisitst not these eyes, that roll in vain to find thy piercing ray, and find no dawn. So thick a drop serene hath quenched their orbs, or dim suffusion veiled. Yet not the more cease I to wander where the muses haunt clear spring, or shady grove, or sunny hill, smit with the love of sacred song. But chief thee Sion, and the flowery brooks beneath that wash thy hallowed feet in warbling flow, nightly I visit, nor sometimes forget those other two equaled with me in fate, so were I equaled with them in renown, bland Tamarus and blind Myonides, and Tiresias and Phineus, prophets old. Then feed on thoughts that voluntary move harmonious numbers, as the wakeful bird sings darkling, and in shadiest covert hid tunes her nocturnal note. Thus with the year's seasons return, but not to me returns day, or the sweet approach of even or morn, or sight of vernal bloom, or summer's rose, or flocks, or herds, or human face divine, but cloud instead, and ever during dark surrounds me, and from the cheerful ways of men cut off, and for the book of knowledge fair presented with a universal blank of nature's works to me expunged and raised, and wisdom at one entrance quite shut out. So much the rather thou, celestial light, shine inward, and the mind through all her powers irradiate. There plant eyes, all mist from thence purge and disperse, that I may see and tell of things invisible to mortal sight.
Now had the Almighty Father from above, from the pure empyrean where he sits, high throned above all height, bent down his eye, his own works and their works once to view. About him all the sanctities of heaven stood thick as stars, and from his sight received beatitude past utterance. On his right, the radiant image of his glory sat, his only Son. On earth he first beheld our first two parents, yet the only two of mankind, in the happy garden placed, reaping immortal fruits of joy and love, uninterrupted joy, unrivaled love, in blissful solitude. He then surveyed hell and the gulf between, and Satan there, coasting the wall of heaven on this side night, in the dun air sublime, and ready now to stoop with wearied wings and willing feet on the bare outside of this world that seemed firm land embosomed without firmament, uncertain which, in ocean or in air. Him God beholding from his prospect high, wherein past, present, future he beholds, thus to his only Son, foreseeing, spake.
Only begotten Son, seest thou what rage transports our adversary, whom no bounds prescribe, no bars of hell, nor all the chains heaped on him there, nor yet the main abyss wide interrupt can hold? So bent he seems on desperate revenge, that shall redound upon his own rebellious head. And now through all restraints broke loose, he wings his way, not far off heaven, in the precincts of light, directly towards the new created world, and man there placed, with purpose to essay, if him by force he can destroy, or worse, by some false guile pervert, and shall pervert. For man will hearken to his glozing lies, and easily transgress the sole command, sole pledge of his obedience. So will fall he and his faithless progeny, whose fault, whose but his own ingrate, he had of me all he could have. I made him just and right, sufficient to have stood, though free to fall. Such I created all the imperial powers and spirits, both them who stood and them who failed. Freely they stood who stood, and fell who fell. Not free, what proof could they have given sincere of true allegiance, constant faith or love, where only what they needs must do appeared, nor what they would? What praise could they receive? What pleasure I from such obedience paid, when will and reason also is choice, useless and vain, of freedom both despoiled, made passive both, had served necessity, not me. They therefore as to right belonged, so were created, nor can justly accuse their maker, or their making, or their faith, as if predestination overruled their will, disposed by absolute decree, or high foreknowledge. They themselves decreed their own revolt, not I. If I foreknew, foreknowledge had no influence on their fault, which had no less proved certain unforeknown. So without least impulse or shadow of faith, or aught by me immutably foreseen, they trespass, authors to themselves in all, both what they judge and what they choose. For so I formed them free, and free they must remain, till they enthrall themselves. I else must change their nature, and revoke the high decree, unchangeable, eternal, which ordained their freedom. They themselves ordained their fall. The first sort, by their own suggestion, fell, self-tempted, self-depraved. Man falls deceived by the other first. Man therefore shall find grace, the other none. In mercy and justice both, through heaven and earth, so shall my glory excel. But mercy first and last shall brightest shine.
Thus, while God spake, Ambrosial fragrance filled all heaven, and the blessed spirits elect, sense of new joy ineffable diffused. Beyond compare, the Son of God was seen most glorious. In him all his Father shone, substantially expressed, and in his face divine compassion visibly appeared, love without end, and without measure grace, which uttering thus he to his Father spake. O Father, gracious was that word which closed thy sovereign sentence, that man should find grace, for which both heaven and earth shall high extol thy praises, with the numerable sound of hymns and sacred songs, wherewith thy throne encompassed shall resound thee, ever blessed. For should man finally be lost, should man, thy creature late so loved, thy youngest son fall circumvented thus by fraud, though joined with his own folly, that be from thee far, that far be from thee, Father, who art judge of all things made, and judgest only right. Or shall the adversary thus obtain his end, and frustrate thine? Shall he fulfill his malice, and thy goodness bring to naught? Or proud return, though to his heavier doom, yet with revenge accomplished, and to hell draw after him the whole race of mankind, by him corrupted? Or wilt thou thyself abolish thy creation, and unmake for him what for thy glory thou hast made? So should thy goodness and thy greatness both be questioned and blasphemed without defense.
To whom the great Creator thus replied, O Son, in whom my soul hath chief delight, Son of my bosom, Son who art alone my word, my wisdom and effectual might, all hast thou spoken as my thoughts are, all as my eternal purpose hath decreed. Man shall not quite be lost, but saved who will, yet not of will in him, but grace in me, freely vouchsafed. Once more I will renew his lapsed powers, though forfeit and enthralled by sin to foul exorbitant desires. Upheld by me, yet once more he shall stand on even ground against his mortal foe. By me upheld that he may know how frail his fallen condition is, and to me owe all his deliverance, and to none but me. Some I have chosen of peculiar grace, elect above the rest. So is my will. The rest shall hear me call, and oft be warned their sinful state, and to appease betimes the incensed deity, while offered grace invites, for I will clear their senses dark, what may suffice and soften stony hearts, to pray, repent, and bring obedience due. To prayer, repentance, and obedience due, though but endeavored with sincere intent. Mine ear shall not be slow, mine eye not shut. And I will place within them as a guide my umpire conscience, whom if they will hear, light after light, well used, they shall attain, and to the end persisting, safe arrive. This my long sufferance and my day of grace, they who neglect and scorn shall never taste. But hard be hardened, blind be blinded more, that they may stumble on and deeper fall, and none but such from mercy I exclude. But yet all is not done. Man disobeying, disloyal breaks his fealty and sins against the high supremacy of heaven, affecting godhood, and so loosing all, to expiate his treason hath not left, but to destruction sacred and devote, he with his whole posterity must die. Die he, or justice must, unless for him some other, able and as willing, pay the rigid satisfaction, death for death. Say, heavenly powers, where shall we find such love? Which of ye will be mortal to redeem man's mortal crime, and just the unjust to save? Dwells in all heaven charity so dear?
He asked, but all the heavenly choir stood mute, and silence was in heaven. On man's behalf, patron or intercessor none appeared, much less that durst upon his own head draw the deadly forfeiture and ransom set. And now without redemption all mankind must have been lost, adjudged to death and hell by doom severe, had not the Son of God, in whom the fullness dwells of love divine, his dearest mediation thus renewed.
Father, thy word is past. Man shall find grace. And shall grace not find means that finds her way, the speediest of thy winged messengers, to visit all thy creatures, and to all comes unprevented, unimplored, unsought. Happy for man so coming. He her aid can never seek, once dead in sins and lost. Atonement for himself or offering meet. Indebted and undone, hath none to bring. Behold me then, me for him, life for life I offer. On me let thine anger fall. Account me man. I for his sake will leave thy bosom and this glory next to thee, freely put off, and for him lastly die well pleased. On me let death wreak all his rage. Under his gloomy power I shall not long lie vanquished. Thou hast given to me to possess life in myself forever. By thee I live, though now to death I yield and am his due. All that of me can die. Yet that debt paid, thou wilt not leave me in the lonesome grave, his prey, nor suffer my unspotted soul forever with corruption there to dwell. But I shall rise victorious and subdue my vanquisher, spoiled of his vaunted spoil. Death, his death wound, shall then receive and stoop inglorious, of his mortal sting disarmed. I through the ample air in triumph high shall lead hell captive, maugre hell, and show the powers of darkness bound. Thou at the sight pleased, out of heaven shalt look down and smile, while by thee raised I ruin all my foes. Death last, and with his carcass glut the grave. Then with the multitude of my redeemed shall enter heaven, long absent and return. Father, to see thy face, wherein no cloud of anger shall remain, but peace assured and reconcilement. Wrath shall be no more, thenceforth, but in thy presence joy entire.
His words here ended, but his meek aspect, silent yet spake, and breathed immortal love to mortal men, above which only shone filial obedience, as a sacrifice glad to be offered. He attends the will of his great Father. Admiration seized all heaven what this might mean, and whither tend wondering. But soon the Almighty thus replied.
O thou in heaven and earth the only peace found out for mankind under wrath, O thou my sole complacence, well thou knowest how dear to me are all my works, nor man the least, though last created, that for him I spare thee from my bosom and right hand, to save, by losing thee awhile, the whole race lost. Thou therefore, whom thou only canst redeem, their nature also to thy nature join, and be thyself man among men on earth, made flesh, when time shall be, of virgin seed. By wondrous birth, be thou in Adam's room the head of all mankind, though Adam's son. As in him perish all men, so in thee, as from a second root shall be restored, as many as are restored. Without thee, none. His crime makes guilty all his sons. Thy merit imputed shall absolve them who renounce their own both righteous and unrighteous deeds, and live in thee transplanted, and from thee receive new life. So man, as is most just, shall satisfy for man, be judged and die, and dying rise, and rising with him raise his brethren, ransomed with his own dear life. So heavenly love shall outdo hellish hate, giving to death and dying to redeem, so dearly to redeem what hellish hate so easily destroyed, and still destroys in those who, when they may, accept not grace. Nor shalt thou, by descending to assume man's nature, lessen or degrade thine own, because thou hast, though throned in highest bliss, equal to God, and equally enjoying godlike fruition, quitted all to save a world from utter loss, and hast been found by merit, more than birthright, Son of God, found worthiest to be so, by being good, far more than great or high, because in thee love hath abounded more than glory abounds. Therefore, thy humiliation shall exalt with thee thy manhood also to this throne. Here shalt thou sit incarnate. Here shalt reign both God and man, Son both of God and man, anointed universal King. All power I give thee. Reign forever, and assume thy merits. Under thee, as head supreme, thrones, princedoms, powers, dominions I reduce. All knees to thee shall bow, of them that bide in heaven or earth, or under earth, in hell. When thou, attended gloriously from heaven, shalt in the sky appear, and from thee send the summoning archangels to proclaim thy dread tribunal. Forthwith, from all winds, the living, and forthwith the sighted dead of all past ages, to the general doom shalt hasten. Such a peal shall rouse their sleep. Then all thy saints assembled, thou shalt judge bad men and angels, till they arranged shall sink beneath thy sentence. Hell, her numbers full, thenceforth shall be forever shut. Meanwhile, the world shall burn, and from her ashes spring new heaven and earth, wherein the just shall dwell, and after all their tribulations long, see golden days, fruitful of golden deeds, with joy and love triumphing, and fair truth. Then thou, thy regal scepter shalt lay by, for regal scepter then no more shall need. God shall be all in all. But all ye gods, adore him who to compass all this dies. Adore the Son and honor him as me.
No sooner had the Almighty ceased, but all the multitude of angels with a shout, loud as from numbers without number, sweet as from blessed voices, uttering joy, heaven rung with jubilee, and loud hosannas filled the eternal regions. Lowly reverent towards either throne they bow, and to the ground with solemn adoration down they cast their crowns inwove with amaranth and gold, immortal amaranth, a flower which once in paradise, fast by the tree of life, began to bloom, but soon for man's offense to heaven removed, where first it grew, there grows, and flowers aloft, shading the fount of life, and where the river of bliss, through midst of heaven, rolls o'er Elysian flowers her amber stream. With these that never fade, the spirits elect bind their resplendent locks enwreathed with beams, now in loose garlands, thick thrown off, the bright pavement that like a sea of jasper shone, empurpled with celestial roses smiled. Then crowned again their golden harps they took, harps ever tuned, that glittering by their side with quivers hung, and with preamble sweet of charming symphony they introduce their sacred song, and waken raptures high. No voice exempt, no voice but well could join melodious part, such concord is in heaven.
Thee, Father, first they sung omnipotent, immutable, immortal, infinite, eternal King, thee, author of all being, fountain of light, thyself invisible amidst the glorious brightness where thou sittst, throned inaccessible. But when thou shadest the full blaze of thy beams, and through a cloud drawn round about thee like a radiant shrine, dark with excessive bright, thy skirts appear. Yet dazzle heaven, that brightest seraphim approach not, but with both wings veil their eyes. Thee next they sang of all creation first, begotten Son, divine similitude, in whose conspicuous countenance, without cloud, made visible the Almighty Father shines, whom else no creature can behold. On thee impressed the effulgence of his glory, abides, transfused on thee his ample spirit rests. He, heaven of heavens, and all the powers therein, by thee created, and by thee threw down the aspiring dominations. Thou that day thy father's dreadful thunder didst not spare, nor stop thy flaming chariot wheels that shook heaven's everlasting frame, while o'er the necks thou drovest of warring angels disarrayed. Back from pursuit, thy powers with loud acclaim thee only extolled, son of thy father's might, to execute fierce vengeance on his foes, not so on man. Him through their malice fallen, Father of mercy and grace, thou didst not doom so strictly, but much more to pity incline. No sooner did thy dear and only Son perceive thee purposed not to doom frail man so strictly, but much more to pity inclined, he to appease thy wrath and end the strife of mercy and justice in thy face discerned, regardless of the bliss wherein he sat second to thee, offered himself to die for man's offense. O unexampled love, love nowhere to be found less than divine. Hail, Son of God, Saviour of men, thy name shall be the copious matter of my song henceforth, and never shall my harp thy praise forget, nor from thy Father's praise disjoin.
Thus they in heaven above the starry sphere their happy hours in joy and hymning spent. Meanwhile, upon the firm opacous globe of this round world, whose first convex divides the luminous inferior orbs, enclosed from chaos and thin road of darkness old, Satan alighted walks. A globe far off it seemed, now seems a boundless continent, dark, waste, and wild, under the frown of night, starless exposed, and ever-threatening storms of chaos blustering round inclement sky. Save on that side, which from the wall of heaven, though distant far, some small reflection gains of glimmering air less vexed with tempest loud. Here walked the fiend at large in spacious field. As when a vulture on Emmaus bred, whose snowy ridge the roving Tartar bounds, dislodging from a region scarce of prey, to gorge the flesh of lambs, or yeanling kids, on hills where flocks are fed, flies toward the springs of Ganges or Hydaspes, Indian streams. But in his way lights on the barren plains of Sarikana, where Chineses drive with sails and wind their caney wagons light. So on this windy sea of land the fiend walked up and down alone, bent on his prey, alone, for other creature in this place, living or liveless to be found, was none. None yet, but store hereafter from the earth up hither like aerial vapors flew, of all things transitory and vain, when sin with vanity had filled the works of men. Both all things vain and all who in vain things built their fond hopes of glory or lasting fame, or happiness in this or th'other life. All who have their reward on earth, the fruits of painful superstition and blind zeal, not seeking but the praise of men, here find fit retribution, empty as their deeds. All the unaccomplished works of nature's hand, abortive, monstrous, or unkindly mixed, dissolved on earth, fleet hither and in vain, till final dissolution wander here, not in the neighboring moon, as some have dreamed, those argent fields more likely habitants, translated saints or middle spirits hold betwixt th' angelical and humankind. Hither of ill-joined sons and daughters, born first from the ancient world, those giants came with many a vain exploit, though then renowned. The builders next of Babel on the plain, of Sennaar, and still with vain design new Babels, had they wherewithal would build. Others came single. He who to be deemed a god leaped fondly into Etna flames, Empedocles, and he who to enjoy Plato's Elysium leaped into the sea, Cleombrotus, and many more too long, embryos and idiots, eremites and friars, white, black, and gray, with all their trumpery.
Here pilgrims roam, that strayed so far to seek in Golgotha him dead who lives in heaven. And they who, to be sure of paradise, dying put on the weeds of Dominic, or in Franciscan think to pass disguised. They pass the planets 7 and pass the fixed, and that crystalline sphere whose balance weighs the trepidation taught, and that first moved. And now St. Peter at heaven's wicket seems to wait them with his keys. And now at foot of heaven's ascent they lift their feet, when lo, a violent crosswind from either coast blows them transversed 10,000 leagues awry into the devious air. Then might ye see cowls, hoods, and habits with their wearers tossed and fluttered into rags. Then relics, beads, indulgences, dispenses, pardons, bulls, the sport of winds. All these upwhirled aloft, fly o'er the backside of the world, far off into a limbo large and broad, since called the paradise of fools. To few unknown long after, now peopled and untrod. All this dark globe the fiend found as he passed, and long he wandered, till at last a gleam of dawning light turned thitherward in haste his travelled steps. Far distant he descries, ascending by degrees magnificent up to the wall of heaven, a structure high, at top whereof. But far more rich appeared the work, as of a kingly palace gate with frontispieces of diamond and gold embellished. Thick with sparkling orient gems the portal shone, inimitable on earth by model or by shading pencil drawn. The stairs were such as whereon Jacob saw angels ascending and descending, bands of guardians bright, when he from Esau fled to pagan Aram in the field of Luz, dreaming by night under the open sky, and waking cried, "This is the gate of heaven." Each stair mysteriously was meant, nor stood there always, but drawn up to heaven sometimes viewless. And underneath a bright sea flowed of jasper, or of liquid pearl, whereon who after came from earth, sailing arrived, wafted by angels, or flew o'er the lake wrapped in a chariot drawn by fiery steeds. The stairs were then let down, whether to dare the fiend by easy ascent, or aggravate his sad exclusion from the doors of bliss.
Direct against which opened from beneath, just o'er the blissful seat of paradise, a passage down to the earth, a passage wide, wider by far than that of after times over Mount Sion, and though that were large, over the promised land to God so dear, by which to visit oft those happy tribes, on high bequests his angels to and fro passed frequent, and his eye with choice regard from Peneus, the fount of Jordan's flood, to Beersaba, where the Holy Land borders on Egypt and the Arabian shore. So wide the opening seemed, where bounds were set to darkness, such as bound the ocean wave. Satan, from hence, now on the lower stair that scaled by steps of gold to heaven gate, looks down with wonder at the sudden view of all this world at once. As when a scout through dark and desert ways with peril gone all night, at last, by break of cheerful dawn, obtains the brow of some high climbing hill, which to his eye discovers unaware the goodly prospect of some foreign land first seen, or some renowned metropolis with glistering spires and pinnacles adorned, which now the rising sun gilds with his beams. Such wonder seized, though after heaven seen the spirit malign, but much more envy seized at sight of all this world beheld so fair. Round he surveys, and well might, where he stood, so high above the circling canopy of night's extended shade. From eastern point of Libra to the fleecy star that bears Andromeda far off Atlantic seas, beyond the horizon. Then from pole to pole he views in breath, and without longer pause, down right into the world's first region throws his flight precipitant, and winds with ease through the pure marble air his oblique way, amongst innumerable stars that shone, stars distant, but nigh hand seemed other worlds, or other worlds they seemed, or happy isles, like those Hesperian gardens famed of old, fortunate fields and groves and flowery vales, thrice happy isles. But who dwelt happy there, he stayed not to inquire. Above all them all, the golden sun in splendor likest heaven allured his eyes. Thither his course he bends through the calm firmament, but up or down, by center or eccentric, hard to tell, or longitude where the great luminary, aloof, the vulgar constellations thick, that from his lordly eye keep distance due, dispenses light from far. They as move their starry dance in numbers that compute days, months, and years toward his all-cheering lamp, turn swift their various motions, or are turned by his magnetic beam, that gently warms the universe, and to each inward part with gentle penetration, though unseen, shoots invisible virtue, even to the deep. So wondrously was his station bright. There lands the fiend, a spot like which perhaps astronomer in the sun's lucent orb, through his glazed optic tube, yet never saw.
The place he found beyond expression bright, compared with aught on earth, metal or stone, not all parts like, but all alike informed, with radiant light, as glowing iron with fire. If metal, part seemed gold, part silver clear, if stone, carbuncle most, or chrysolite, ruby or topaz, to the 12 that shone in Aaron's breastplate, and a stone besides, imagined rather oft than elsewhere seen, that stone, or like to that which here below philosophers in vain so long have sought in vain, though by their powerful art they bind volatile Hermes, and call up unbound in various shapes old Proteus from the sea, drained through a limbeck to his native form.
What wonder then, if fields and regions here breathe forth elixir pure, and rivers run potable gold, when with one virtuous touch the arch-chemic sun, so far from us remote, produces, with terrestrial humor mixed here in the dark, so many precious things, of color glorious and effect so rare.
Here matter new to gaze the devil met, undazzled. Far and wide his eye commands, for sight no obstacle found here, nor shade, but all sunshine, as when his beams at noon culminate from the equator, as they now shot upward still direct, whence no way round shadow from body opaque can fall. And the air nowhere so clear sharpened his visual ray to objects distant far, whereby he soon saw within ken a glorious angel stand, the same whom John saw also in the sun. His back was turned, but not his brightness hid. Of beaming sunny rays a golden tiara circled his head, nor less his locks behind, illustrious on his shoulders, fledged with wings, lay waving round. On some great charge employed he seemed, or fixed in cogitation deep. Glad was the spirit impure, as now in hope to find who might direct his wandering flight to paradise, the happy seat of man, his journey's end, and our beginning woe. But first he casts to change his proper shape, which else might work him danger or delay. And now a stripling cherub he appears, not of the prime, yet such as in his face youth smiled celestial. and to every limb suitable grace diffused, so well he feigned. Under a coronet his flowing hair and curls on either cheek played. Wings he wore of many a colored plume sprinkled with gold. His habit fit for speed succinct, and held before his decent steps a silver wand. He drew not nigh unheard. The angel bright, ere he drew nigh, his radiant visage turned, admonished by his ear, and straight was known the archangel Uriel, one of the seven who in God's presence, nearest to his throne, stand ready at command, and are his eyes that run through all the heavens, or down to the earth bear his swift errands over moist and dry, or sea and land. Him Satan thus accosts.
Uriel, for thou of those seven spirits stand inside of God's high throne, gloriously bright, the first art wont his great authentic will interpreter through highest heaven to bring, where all his sons thy embassy attend. And here art likeliest by supreme decree like honor to obtain, and as his eye to visit off this new creation round. Unspeakable desire to see and know all these his wondrous works, but chiefly man, his chief delight and favor, him for whom all these his works so wondrous he ordained, hath brought me from the choirs of cherubim, alone thus wandering. Brightest seraph, tell in which of all these shining orbs hath man his fixed seat, or fixed seat hath none, but all these shining orbs his choice to dwell. That I may find him, and with secret gaze or open admiration him behold, on whom the great Creator hath bestowed worlds, and on whom hath all these graces poured, that both in him and all things, as is meet, the universal Maker, we may praise, who justly hath driven out his rebel foes to deepest hell, and to repair that loss, created this new, happy race of men to serve him better. Wise are all his ways.
So spake the false dissembler unperceived, for neither man nor angel can discern hypocrisy, the only evil that walks invisible except to God alone. By his permissive will through heaven and earth, and oft though wisdom wake, suspicion sleeps at wisdom's gate, and to simplicity resigns her charge, while goodness thinks no ill, where no ill seems, which now for once beguiled Uriel, though regent of the sun, and held the sharpest sighted spirit of all in heaven, who to the fraudulent impostor foul in his uprightness answer thus returned: Fair angel, thy desire which tends to know the works of God, thereby to glorify the great workmaster, leads to no excess that reaches blame, but rather merits praise, the more it seems excess, that led thee hither from thy imperial mansion thus alone, to witness with thine eyes what some perhaps, contented with report, hear only in heaven. For wonderful indeed are all his works, pleasant to know and worthiest to be all, had in remembrance always with delight. But what created mind can comprehend their number, or the wisdom infinite that brought them forth, but hid their causes deep? I saw when at his word the formless mass, this world's material mold, came to a heap, confusion heard his voice, and wild uproar stood vast infinitude confined, till at his second bidding darkness fled, light shone, and order from disorder sprung. Swift to their several quarters hasted then the cumbrous elements, earth, flood, air, fire, and this ethereal quintessence of heaven flew upward, spirited with various forms, that rolled orbicular and turned to stars numberless as thou seest, and how they move. Each had his place appointed, each his course. The rest in circuit walls this universe. Look downward on that globe whose hither side, with light from hence, though but reflected shines. That place is earth, the seat of man, that light his day, which else as the other hemisphere night would invade, but there the neighboring moon, so called that opposite fair star, her aid timely interposes, and her monthly round still ending, still renewing through mid-heaven, with borrowed light her countenance triform, hence fills and empties to enlighten the earth, and in her pale dominion checks the night. That spot to which I point is paradise, Adam's abode, those lofty shades his bower. Thy way thou canst not miss, me mine requires.
Thus said, he turned, and Satan bowing low, as to superior spirits is wont in heaven, where honor due and reverence none neglects, took leave, and toward the coast of earth beneath, down from the ecliptic, sped with hoped success, throws his steep flight in many an airy wheel, nor stayed till on Nephates' top he lights.
Book 4. Oh, for that warning voice, which he who saw the apocalypse heard cry in heaven aloud. Then, when the dragon put to second rout, came furious down to be revenged on men, woe to the inhabitants on earth, that now, while time was, our first parents had been warned the coming of their secret foe, and scaped haply, so scaped his mortal snare. For now Satan, now first inflamed with rage, came down, the tempter ere the accuser of mankind, to wreak on innocent frail man his loss of that first battle and his flight to hell. Yet not rejoicing in his speed, though bold, far off and fearless, nor with cause to boast, begins his dire attempt, which nigh the birth now rolling boils in his tumultuous breast, and like a devilish engine back recoils upon himself. Horror and doubt distract his troubled thoughts, and from the bottom stir the hell within him, for within him hell he brings, and round about him, nor from hell one step no more than from himself can fly by change of place. Now conscience wakes despair that slumbered, wakes the bitter memory of what he was, what is, and what must be worse. Of worse deeds, worse sufferings must ensue. Sometimes towards Eden, which now in his view lay pleasant, his grieved look he fixes sad, sometimes toward heaven in the full blazing sun, which now sat high in his meridian tower. Then much revolving, thus in sighs began.
Thou that with surpassing glory crowned lookst from thy sole dominion like the God of this new world, at whose sight all the stars hide their diminished heads, to thee I call, but with no friendly voice, and add thy name, O Sun, to tell thee how I hate thy beams, that bring to my remembrance from what state I fell, how glorious once above thy sphere, till pride and worse ambition threw me down, warring in heaven against heaven's matchless king. Ah, wherefore? He deserved no such return from me, whom he created what I was in that bright eminence, and with his good upbraided none, nor was his service hard. What could be less then? To afford him praise, the easiest recompense, and pay him thanks, how due? Yet all his good proved ill and mean, and wrought but malice, lifted up so high, I deigned subjection, and thought one step higher would set me highest, and in a moment quit the debt immense of endless gratitude, so burdensome, still paying, still to owe, forgetful what from him I still received, and understood not that a grateful mind by owing owes not, but still pays, at once indebted and discharged. What burden then? Oh, had his powerful destiny ordained me some inferior angel, I had stood then happy. No unbounded hope had raised ambition. Yet, why not? Some other power as great might have aspired, and me, though mean, drawn to his part. But other powers as great fell not, but stand unshaken, from within or from without, to all temptation's arm. Hadst thou the same free will and power to stand? Thou hadst. Whom hast thou then, or what to accuse, but heaven's free love dealt equally to all? Be then his love accursed, since love or hate to me alike, it deals eternal woe. Nay, cursed be thou, since against his thy will chose freely what it now so justly rues. Me miserable, which way shall I fly infinite wrath and infinite despair? Which way I fly is hell, myself am hell, and in the lowest deep, a lower deep, still threatening to devour me, opens wide, to which the hell I suffer seems a heaven. Oh, then at last relent. Is there no place left for repentance, none for pardon left? None left, but by submission, and that word disdain forbids me. And my dread of shame among the spirits beneath, whom I seduced with other promises and other vaunts than to submit, boasting I could subdue the omnipotent. Ay me, they little know how dearly I abide that boast so vain, under what torments inwardly I groan, while they adore me on the throne of hell, with diadem and scepter high advanced. The lower still I fall, only supreme in misery, such joy ambition finds. But say I could repent, and could obtain by act of grace my former state, how soon would height recall high thoughts, how soon unsay what feigned submission swore, ease would recant vows made in pain, as violent and void, for never can true reconcilement grow where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep, which would but lead me to a worse relapse and heavier fall. So should I purchase dear short intermission bought with double smart. This knows my punisher, as far from granting he as I from begging peace. All hope excluded thus, behold instead of us outcast, exiled his new delight, mankind created, and for him this world. So farewell hope, and with hope farewell fear, farewell remorse, all good to me is lost, evil be thou my good, by thee at least divided empire with heaven's king I hold, by thee and more than half perhaps will reign, as man ere long, and this new world shall know.
Thus while he spake, each passion dimmed his face thrice charged with pale ire, envy, and despair, which marred his borrowed visage and betrayed him counterfeit, if any eye beheld. For heavenly minds from such distempers foul are ever clear, whereof he soon aware each perturbation smooth with outward calm, artificer of fraud, and was the first that practiced falsehood under saintly show, deep malice to conceal, couched with revenge. Yet not enough had practiced to deceive Uriel once warned, whose eye pursued him down the way he went, and on the Assyrian mount saw him disfigured. More then could befall spirit of happy sort. His gestures fierce he marked, and mad demeanor. Then alone, as he supposed, all unobserved, unseen. So on he fares, and to the border comes of Eden, where delicious paradise now nearer crowns with her enclosure green, as with a rural mound the champaign head of a steep wilderness, whose hairy sides with thicket overgrown, grotesque and wild, access denied. And overhead upgrew insuperable height of loftiest shade, cedar and pine and fir and branching palm, a sylvan scene. And as the ranks ascend shade above shade, a woody theater of stateliest view. Yet higher than their tops, the verdurous wall of paradise upsprung, which to our general sire gave prospect large into his nether empire neighboring round. And higher than that wall, a circling row of goodliest trees loaden with fairest fruit, blossoms and fruits at once of golden hue appeared, with gay enameled colors mixed, on which the sun more glad impressed his beams than in fair evening cloud or humid bough, when God has showered the earth. So lovely seemed that landscape, and of pure, now purer air meets his approach, and to the heart inspires vernal delight and joy, able to drive all sadness but despair. Now gentle gales fanning their odoriferous wings dispense native perfumes and whisper whence they stole those balmy spoils. As when to them who sail beyond the Cape of Hope and now are past Mozambique off at sea, northeast winds blow, Sabaean odors from the spicy shore of Araby the blessed. With such delay, well pleased they slack their course, and many a league cheered with the grateful smell old ocean smiles. So entertain those odorous sweets, the fiend who came their bane, though with them better pleased than Asmodeus with the fishy fume that drove him, though enamored from the spouse of Tobit's son, and with the vengeance sent from Media post to Egypt, there fast bound.
Now, to the ascent of that steep, savage hill, Satan had journeyed on, pensive and slow. But further away he found none so thick entwined as one continued brake. The undergrowth of shrubs and tangling bushes had perplexed all path of man or beast that passed that way. One gate there only was, and that looked east on the other side, which, when the archfelon saw, due entrance he disdained, and in contempt, at one slight bound, high overleapt all bound of hill or highest wall, and sheer within lights on his feet, as when a prowling wolf whom hunger drives to seek new haunt for prey, watching where shepherds pen their flocks at eve, in hurtled coats amid the field secure, leaps o'er the fence with ease into the fold. Or as a thief bent to unhoard the cash of some rich burgher, whose substantial door is cross-barred and bolted fast, fear no assault, in at the window climbs, or o'er the tiles, so clomb this first grand thief into God's fold. So since into his church lewd hirelings climb. Thence up he flew, and on the tree of life, the middle tree, and highest there that grew, sat like a cormorant, yet not true life thereby regained, but sat devising death to them who live, or on the virtue thought of that, nor on the virtue thought of that life-giving plant, but only used for prospect. What well used had been the pledge of immortality. So little knows any but God alone to value right the good before him, but perverts best things to worst abuse, or to their meanest use. Beneath him, with new wonder now, he views to all delight of human sense exposed in narrow room nature's whole wealth. Yea, more, a heaven on earth, for blissful paradise of God the garden was. By him in the east of Eden planted. Eden stretched her line from Auran eastward to the royal towers of great Seleucia, built by Grecian kings, or where the sons of Eden long before dwelt in Thalasar. In this pleasant soil, his far more pleasant garden, God ordained. Out of the fertile ground he caused to grow all trees of noblest kind for sight, smell, taste. And all amid them stood the tree of life, high eminent, blooming ambrosial fruit of vegetable gold. And next to life, our death, the tree of knowledge grew fast by. Knowledge of good bought dear by knowing ill. Southward through Eden went a river large, nor changed his course, but through the shaggy hill, passed underneath, engulfed, for God had thrown that mountain as his garden mold high raised upon the rapid current, which through veins of porous earth with kindly thirst updrawn, rose a fresh fountain, and with many a rill watered the garden. Thence united fell down the steep glade and met the nether flood, which from his darksome passage now appears, and now divided into 4 main streams, runs divers, wandering many a famous realm and country, whereof here needs no account, but rather to tell how, if art could tell, how from that sphere have I lost the sound? No? Okay.
Okay, Tom, you're at Sapphire Fountain.
Okay, I thought I lost the sound because how from that sapphire fount the crisped brooks rowling in orient pearl and sands of gold with mazy error under pendant shades ran nectar, visiting each point, and fed flowers worthy of paradise, which not nice art in beds and curious knots, but nature boon poured forth profuse on hill and dale and plain, both where the morning sun first warmly smote the open field and where the unpierced shade embrowned the noontide bowers. Thus was this place a happy rural seat of various view, groves whose rich trees wept odorous gums and balm, others whose fruit, burnished with golden rind, hung amiable. Hesperian fables true, if true, here only, and of delicious taste. Between them, betwixt them, lawns or level downs and flocks grazing the tender herb were interposed, or palmy hillock or the flowery lap of some irriguous valley spread her store, flowers of all hue and without thorn, the rose. Another side, umbrageous grots and caves of cool
Tom,
reset.
this is Wendy now.
Oh, did
Another
I?
side,
Oh, and without thorn, the rose, full stop.
Another side, umbrageous grots and caves of cool recess, o'er which the mantling vine lays forth her purple grape, and gently creeps luxuriant. Meanwhile, the murmuring waters fall down the slope hills, dispersed or in a lake, that to the fringed bank with myrtle crowned, her crystal mirror holds, unite their streams. The birds their choir apply, airs, vernal airs, breathing the smell of field and grove, attune the trembling leaves, while universal Pan, knit with the graces and the hours in dance, led on the eternal spring. Not that fair field of Enna, where Proserpine gathering flowers, herself a fairer flower, by glooming Dis was gathered, which cost Ceres all that pain to seek her through the world. Nor that sweet grove of Daphne by Orontes, and the inspired Castalian spring might with this paradise of Eden strive. Nor that Nazian isle, girt with the river Triton, where old Sham, who Gentiles Ammon call in Libyan Jove, hid Amalthea and her florid son, young Bacchus, from his stepdame Rhea's eye. Not where Avestan kings their issue guard, Mount Amara, though this by some suppose true paradise under the Ethiop line by Nilus head, enclosed with shining rock, a whole day's journey high, but wide remote from this Assyrian garden, where the fiend saw undelighted all delight. All kind of living creatures new to sight and strange, two of far nobler shape, erect and tall, godlike erect, with native honor clad in naked majesty, seemed lords of all, and worthy seemed, for in their looks divine the image of their glorious maker shone. Truth, wisdom, sanctitude, severe and pure, severe, but in true filial freedom placed, whence true authority in men. Though both not equal, as their sex not equal seemed, for contemplation he and valor formed, for softness she and sweet attractive grace. He for God only, she for God in him. His fair large front and eye sublime declared absolute rule, and hyanthian locks, frowned from his parted forehead, manlyhood hung, clustering, but not beneath his shoulders broad. She, as a veil down to the slender waist, her unadorned golden tresses wore, disheveled, but in wanton ringlets waved as the vine curls her tendrils, which implied subjection, but required with gentle sway, and by her yielded, by him best received, yielded with coy submission, modest pride, and sweet, reluctant, amorous delay. Nor those mysterious parts were then concealed. Then was not guilty shame, dishonest shame of nature's works, honor dishonorable, sin bred. How have ye troubled all mankind with shows instead, mere shows of seeming pure, and banished from man's life his happiest life, simplicity and spotless innocence. So passed they naked on, the loveliest pair that ever since in love's embraces met. Adam, the goodliest man of men since born his sons, the fairest of her daughters, Eve. Under a tuft of shade that on a green stood whispering soft, by a fresh fountainside they sat them down. And after no more toil of their sweet gardening labor than sufficed to recommend cool zephyr, and made ease more easy, wholesome thirst and appetite more grateful, to their supper fruits they fell. Nectarine fruits, which the compliant boughs yielded them, sidelong as they sat reclined on the soft downy bank damasked with flowers. The savory pulp they chew, and in the rind, still as they thirsted, scoop the brimming stream. Nor gentle purpose, nor endearing smiles wanted, nor youthful dalliance as beseems fair couple, linked in happy nuptial league, alone as they. About them frisky played all beasts of the earth since wild, and of all chase in wood or wilderness, forest or den. Sporting, the lion ramped, and in his paw dandled the kid. Bears, tigers, ounces, pards gamboled before them. The unwieldy elephant, to make them mirth, used all his might and wreathed his lithe proboscis. Close the serpent sly, insinuating, wove with Gordian twine his braided train, and of his fatal guile gave proof unheeded. Others on the grass couched, and now filled with pasture gazing sat, or bedward ruminating, for the sun declined, was hastening now with prone career to the ocean isles, and the ascending scale of heaven, the stars that usher evening rose, when Satan, still in gaze, as first he stood, scarce thus at length failed speech, recovered, sad.
Oh, hell! What do mine eyes with grief behold into our room of bliss, thus high advanced creatures of other mold? Earthborn perhaps, not spirits, yet to heavenly spirits bright, little inferior, whom my thoughts pursue with wonder, and could love, so lively shines in them divine resemblance, and such grace the hand that formed them on their shape hath poured. Ah, gentle pair, you little think how nigh your change approaches, when all these delights will vanish and deliver you to woe, more woe. The more your taste is now of joy happy, but for so happy ill secured, long to continue. In this high seat your heaven, ill fenced, for heaven to keep out such a foe as now is entered, yet no purposed foe, to you whom I could pity thus forlorn, though I unpitied. League with you I seek, and mutual amity so straight, so close, that I with you must dwell, or you with me henceforth. My dwelling haply may not please, like this fair paradise, your sense, yet such accept your Maker's work, he gave it me, which I as freely give. Hell shall unfold to entertain you two, her widest gates, and send forth all her kings. There will be room, not like these narrow limits, to receive your numerous offspring, if no better place. Thank him who puts me loath to this revenge, on you who wronged me, not for him who wronged. And should I at your harmless innocence melt, as I do, yet public reason, just honor, and empire with revenge enlarged by conquering this new world compels me now to do what, though damned, I should abhor.
So spake the fiend, and with necessity the tyrant's plea excused with his devilish deeds. Then from his lofty stand on that high tree down he alights among the sportful herd of those four-footed kinds, himself now one, now other, as their shape served him best his end, near to view his prey, and unespied to mark what of their state he more might learn, by word or action marked. About them round a lion now he stalks with fiery gaze. Then, as a tiger who by chance had spied in some purlieu 2 gentle fawns at play, straight couches close, then rising changes oft his couchant watch, as one who chooses ground whence rushing he might sure seize them both gripped in each paw. When Adam, first of man to first of women, Eve, thus moving speech, turned him all ear to hear new utterance flow. So partner, and so part of all these joys, dear thyself than all, need must be the power that made us, and for us this ample world be infinitely good, and of his good as liberal and free as infinite, that raised us from the dust and placed us here in all this happiness, who at his end have nothing merited, nor can perform aught whereof he hath need. He who requires from us no other service than to keep this one, this easy charge of all the trees in paradise that bear delicious fruit, so various, not to taste that onely tree of knowledge planted by the tree of life, so near grows death to life, what e'er death is. Some dreadful thing, no doubt, for well thou knowest God hath pronounced it death to taste that tree. The only sign of our obedience left among so many signs of power and rule conferred upon us, and dominion given over all other creatures that possess earth, air, and sea. Then let us not think hard one easy prohibition who enjoy free leave so large to all things else, and choice unlimited of manifold delights. But let us ever praise him and extol his bounty, following our delightful task to prune these growing plants and tend these flowers, which were toilsome, yet which with thee were sweet. To whom thus Eve replied, O thou for whom and from whom I was formed, flesh of my flesh, and without whom I am to no end, my guiding head, what thou hast said is just and right. For we to him indeed all praises owe, and daily thanks, I chiefly who enjoy so far the happier lot, enjoying thee prominent by so much odds, while thou, like consort to thyself, canst nowhere find. That day I oft remember, when from sleep I first awaked, and find myself reposed under a shade of flowers, much wondering where and what I was, whence thither brought, and how. Not distant far, from thence a murmuring sound of waters issued from a cave and spread into a liquid plain, then stood unmoved, pure as the expanse of heaven. I thither went with an experienced thought, and laid me down on a green bank, so to look into the clear smooth lake that to me seemed another sky. As I bent down to look, just opposite, A shape within the watery gleam appeared, bending to look on me. I started back, it started back, but pleased, I soon returned. Pleased, it returned as soon as with answering looks of sympathy and love. There I had fixed mine eyes till now, and penned with vain desire, had not a voice thus warned me. What thou seest, what there thou seest, fair creature, is thyself. With thee it came and goes, but follow me, and I will bring thee, where no shadow stays, thy coming and thy soft embraces, he whose image thou art. Him thou shalt enjoy inseparably thine, to him shalt bear multitudes like thyself, and thence be called mother of human race. What could I do but follow straight, invisibly thus led? Till I spied thee, fair indeed and tall, under a platen, yet methought less fair, less winning soft, less amiable mild, than that smooth watery image. Back I turned, thou following, criedst aloud, return, fair Eve. Whom fliest thou? Whom thou fliest, of him thou art his flesh, his bone. To give thee being, I lent out of my side to thee, nearest my heart substantial life, to have thee by my side. Henceforth, an individual solace dear, part of my soul I seek thee, and thee claim my other half. With thy gentle hand seized mine, I yielded, and from that time see how beauty is excelled by manly grace, and wisdom, which alone is truly fair.
So spake our general mother, and with eyes of conjugal attraction unreproved, and meek surrender, half embracing leaned on our first father, half her swelling breast naked met under the flowing gold of her loose tresses hid. He in delight both of her beauty and submissive charms smiled with superior love, as Jupiter on Juno smiles, while he impregnates the clouds that shed May flowers and pressed her matron lip with kisses pure. Aside the devil turned for envy, yet with jealous leer malign eyed them askance, and to himself thus plained. Sight hateful, sight tormenting, thus these two in paradise in one another's arms, the happier Eden, shall enjoy their fill of bliss on bliss, while I to hell am thrust, where neither joy nor love, but fierce desire, among our other torments not the least, still unfulfilled with pain of longing pines. Yet let me not forget what I have gained from their own mouth. All is not theirs, it seems. One fatal tree there stands of knowledge called, forbidden them to taste. Knowledge forbidden. Suspicious, reasonless. Why should their Lord envy them that? Can it be sin to know? Can it be death? And do they only stand by ignorance? Is that their happy state? The proof of their obedience and their faith? O fair foundation laid whereon to build their ruin! Hence I will excite their minds with more desire to know and to reject envious commands, invented with design to keep them low, whom knowledge might exalt equal with gods. Aspiring to be such, they taste and die. What likelier can ensue? But first with narrow search I must walk round this garden, and leave no corner unspied. A chance may lead, where I may meet some wandering spirit of heaven by fountain side, or in thick shade retired, from him to draw what further would be learnt. Live while ye may, yet happy pair, enjoy till I return. Short pleasures for long woes are to succeed.
So saying, his proud step he scornful turned, but with sly circumspection, and began through wood, through waste, or hill, or dale his roam. Meanwhile, in utmost longitude, where heaven with earth and ocean meets, the setting sun slowly descended, and with right aspect against the eastern gate of paradise levels his evening rays. It was a rock of alabaster, piled up to the clouds, conspicuous far, winding with one ascent accessible from earth, one entrance high. The rest was craggy cliff that overhung, still as it rose, impossible to climb. Between these rocky pillars, Gabriel sat, chief of the angelic guards, awaiting night. About him exercised heroic games the unarmed youth of heaven. But nigh at hand, celestial armory, shields, helms, and spears, hung high with diamond flaming and with gold. Thither came Uriel, gliding through the even on a sunbeam, swift as a shooting star in autumn thwarts the night, when vapors fired impress the air, and shows the mariner from what point of his compass to beware impetuous winds. He thus began in haste, Gabriel, to thee thy course by lot hath given charge and strict watch, that to this happy place no evil thing approach or enter in. This day, at height of noon, came to my sphere a spirit, zealous as he seemed to know more of the Almighty's works, and chiefly man, God's latest image. I descried his way, bent all on speed, and marked his airy gait. But in the mount that lies from Eden north, where he first lighted, soon discerned his looks alien from heaven, with passions foul obscured. Mine eye pursued him still, but under shade lost sight of him. One of the banished crew, I fear, hath ventured from the deep to raise new troubles. Him thy care must be to find. To whom the winged warrior thus returned, Uriel? No wonder if thy perfect sight amidst the sun's bright circle where thou sitst, see far and wide. In at this gate none pass the vigilance here placed, but such as come well known from heaven, and since meridian hour no creature thence. If spirit of other sort so minded have o'erleapt these earthy bounds on purpose, hard thou knowst it is to exclude spiritual substance with corporeal bar. But if within the circuit of these walks, in whatsoever shape he lurk, of whom thou tellst, by morrow dawning I shall know. So promised he. And Uriel to his charge returned on the bright beam, whose point, now raised, bore him slope downward to the sun, now fallen beneath the Azores. Whether their prime orb, incredible how swift, had thither rolled diurnal, or this less voluble earth, by shorter flight to the east, had left him here, arraying with reflected purple and gold the clouds that on his western throne attend. Now came still evening on, and twilight grey had in her sober livery all things clad. Silence accompanied, for beast and bird, they to their grassy couch, these to their nests were slunk, all but the wakeful nightingale. She all night long her amorous descants sung. Silence was pleased. Now glowed the firmament with living sapphires. Hesperus, that led the starry host, rode brightest till the moon, rising in clouded majesty, at length apparent queen unveiled her peerless light, and o'er the dark her silver mantle threw. When Adam thus to Eve, fair consort, the hour of night, and all things now retired to rest, minds us of like repose, since God hath set labour and rest as day and night to men successive, and the timely dew of sleep now falling with soft slumberous weight inclines our eyelids. Other creatures all day long rove idle, unemployed, and less need rest. Man hath his daily work of body or mind appointed, which declares his dignity and the regard of heaven on all his ways. While other animals, unactive range, and of their doings God takes no account. Tomorrow, ere fresh morning streak the east with first approach of light, we must be risen, and at our pleasant labour, to reform yon flowery arbours, yonder alleys green, our walk at noon, the branches overgrown that mock our scant manuring, and require more hands than ours to lop their wanton growth. Those blossoms also, and those dropping gums that lie bestrewn unsightly and unsmooth, ask riddance if we mean to tread with ease. Meanwhile, as nature wills, night bids us rest.
To whom thus Eve with perfect beauty adorned, my author and disposer, what thou bidst unargued I obey. So God ordains, God is thy law, thou mine. To know no more is woman's happiest knowledge and her praise. With thee conversing I forget all time, all seasons and their change, all pleas alike. Sweet is the breath of morn, her rising sweet, with charm of earliest birds. Pleasant the sun, when first on this delightful land he spreads his orient beams on herb, tree, fruit, and flower, glistering with dew. Fragrant the fertile earth after soft showers, and sweet the coming on of grateful evening mild. Then silent night, with this her solemn bird, and this fair moon, and these the gems of heaven, her starry train. But neither breath of morn when she ascends, with charm of earliest birds, nor rising sun on this delightful land, nor herb, fruit, flower glistering with dew, nor fragrance after showers, nor grateful evening mild, nor silent night with this her solemn bird, nor walk by moon, or glittering starlight without thee is sweet. But wherefore all night long shine these, for whom this glorious sight, when sleep hath shut all eyes? To whom our general ancestor replied, Daughter of man and God, accomplished Eve, those have their course to finish round the earth by morrow evening, and from land to land in order, though to nations yet unborn, ministering light prepared, they set and rise, lest total darkness should by night regain her old possession, and extinguish life in nature and all things, which these soft fires not only enlighten, but with kindly heat of various influence ferment and warm, temper or nourish, or in part shed down their stellar virtue on all kinds that grow on earth, made hereby apter to receive perfection from the sun's more potent ray. These then, though unbeheld in deep of night, shine not in vain, nor think, though men were none, that heaven would want spectators, God want praise. Millions of spiritual creatures walk the earth unseen, both when we wake and when we sleep. All these with ceaseless praise his works behold, both day and night. How often from the steep of echoing hill or thicket have we heard celestial voices to the midnight air, soul or responsive each to other's note, singing their great creator. Often bands while they keep watch, or nightly rounding walk, with heavenly touch of instrumental sounds in full harmonic number joined, their songs divide the night and lift our thoughts to heaven. Thus talking hand in hand alone they passed on to their blissful bower. It was a place chosen by the sovereign planter when he framed all things to man's delightful use. The roof of thickest covert was in woven shade, laurel and myrtle. And what higher grew of firm and fragrant leaf on either side, acanthus, and each odorous bushy shrub fenced up the verdant wall. Each beauteous flower, iris all hues, roses and jessamine reared high their flourished heads between, and wrought mosaic. Underfoot the violet, crocus, and hyacinth with rich inlay broidered the ground, more colored than with stone of costliest emblem. Other creature here, beast, bird, insect, or worm durst enter none. Such was their awe of man. In shady bower more sacred and sequestered, though but feigned, Pan or Sylvanus never slept, nor nymph, nor Faunus haunted. Here, in close recess, with flowers, garlands, and sweet-smelling herbs, espoused Eve, decked first her nuptial bed, and heavenly choirs the Hymenean sung. What day the genial angel to our sire brought her in naked beauty more adorned, more lovely than Pandora, whom the gods endowed with all their gifts. And oh, too like, in sad event, when to the unwiser son of Japhet brought by Hermes, she ensnared mankind with her fair looks, to be avenged on him who had stole Jove's authentic fire.
Thus at their shady lodge arrived, both stood, both turned, and under open sky adorned the God that made both sky, air, earth, and heaven, which they beheld. The moon's resplendent globe and starry pole, thou also madest the night, maker omnipotent, and thou the day, which we now appointed work, employed, have finished, happy, in our mutual help and mutual love. The crown of all our bliss ordained by thee, and this delicious place for us too large, where thy abundance wants partakers, and uncrop falls to the ground. But thou hast promised from us to a race to fill the earth, who shall with us extol thy goodness infinite, both when we wake and when we seek, as now thy gift of sleep. This said unanimous, and other rites observing none, but adoration pure, which God likes best, into their inmost power handed they went, and is the putting of these troublesome disguises which we wear. Straight side by side were laid, nor turned I win Adam from his fair spouse, nor Eve the rites mysterious of connubial love refused. Whatever hypocrites austerely talk of purity and place and innocence, defaming as impure what God declares pure, and commands to some, leaves free to all. Our Maker bids increase. Who bids abstain but our destroyer, foe to God and man? Hell wedded love, mysterious law, true source of human offspring, soul of propriety, in paradise of all things common else. By thee, adulterous lust was driven from man among the bestial herds to range. By thee, founded in reason, loyal, just, and pure, relations dear, and all the charities of father, son, and brother first were known. Forbid that I should write thee sin or blame, or think thee unbefitting holiest place, perpetual fountain of domestic sweets, whose bed is undefiled and chaste pronounced, present or past, as sanctum patriarchs used. Here love his golden shafts employed, here lies his constant lamp, and waves his purple wings, reigns here and revels, not in the bought smile of helots, loveless, joyless, unendeared, casual fruition, nor in cold amorous mixed dance, or wanton mask, or midnight ball, or serenade, which the stuffed lover sings to his proud fair, best quitted with disdain. This loud by nightingales embracing slept, and on their naked limbs the flowery roof showered roses, which the morn repaired. Sleep on blessed hair, and oh ye happiest, if ye seek no happier state, and know to know no more. Now had night measured with her shadowy tone halfway uphill this vast sublunar vault, and from thy ivory port the cherubim forth issuing at the accustomed hour stood armed to their night watches in warlike parade, when Gabriel, to his next in power, thus spake: Uzziel, have this draw off, and holds the south with strictest watch. This other will, the north, our circuit makes for west, as flame they part half willing to the shield and half to the spear. From there, two strong and subtle spirits he caught that near him stood, and gave them thus in charge: Israel and Zephan, with winged speed, search through this garden, leave unsearched no nook, but chiefly where those two fair creatures lodge, now laid perhaps asleep, secure of harm. This evening from the sun's decline arrived, who tells of some infernal spirit seen hitherward bent. Who could have thought, escaped the bars of hell, on errand bad no doubt, such where it find, seize fast, and hither bring.
So saying, on he led his radiant files, dazzling the moon. These to the bower direct, in search of whom they sought. Him there they found, squat like a toad, close at the ear of Eve, essaying by his devilish art to reach the organs of her fancy, and with them forge illusions as he list, phantasms and dreams. Or if, inspiring venom, he might taint the animal spirits that from pure blood arise like gentle breaths from rivers pure, thence raise, at least, distempered, discontented thoughts, vain hopes, vain aims, inordinate desires blown up with high conceits, engendering pride. Him thus intent, ethereal with his spear touched lightly, for no falsehood can endure touch of celestial temper, but returns of force to its own likeness. Up he starts, discovered and surprised, as when a spark lights on a heap of nitrous powder, laid fit for the ton some magazine to store against a rumored war, the smutty grain with sudden blaze diffused, inflames the air. So started up in his own shape the fiend. Back stepped those two fair angels, half amazed, so sudden to behold the grisly king. Yet thus, unmoved with fear, accost him soon. Which of those rebel spirits, adjudged to hell, comest thou, escaped thy prison, and transformed? Why satst thou like an enemy in wait, here watching at the head of those who sleep? Know ye not then, said Satan, filled with scorn, know ye not me? Ye knew me once, no mate for you, there sitting where ye durst not soar. Not to know me argues yourselves unknown, the lowest of your throng. Or if ye know, why ask ye? And superfluous begin your message, like to end as much in vain. To whom thus Zephan, answering scorn with scorn, think not, revolted spirit, thy shape the same, or undiminished brightness, to be known as when thou stoodst in heaven, upright and pure. That glory then, when thou no more wast good, departed from thee, and thou resemblest now thy sin, and place of doom, obscure and foul. But come, for thou be sure shalt give account to him who sent us, whose charge is to keep this place inviolable, and these from harm. So spake the cherub, and his grave rebuke, severe in youthful beauty, added grace invincible. Abashed the devil stood, and felt how awful goodness is, and saw virtue in her shape, how lovely, saw and pined his loss, but chiefly to find here observed his luster visibly impaired, yet seemed undaunted. If I must contend, said he, best with the best, the sender, not the sent, or all at once, more glory will be won, or less be lost. Thy fear, said Zephan bold, will save us trial what the least can do, single against thee, wicked, and thence weak. The fiend replied not, overcome with rage, but like a proud steed reined, went haughty on, champing his iron curb. To strive or fly he held it vain. Awe from above had quelled his heart, not else dismayed. Now drew they nigh the western point, where those half-rounding guards just met, and closing stood in squadron joined, awaiting next command. To whom their chief, Gabriel, from the front, thus called aloud, O friends, I hear the tread of nimble feet hasting this way, and now by glimpse discern Ithuriel and Zephan through the shade. And with them comes a third of regal port, but faded splendor wan, who by his gait and fierce demeanor seems the prince of hell, not likely to part hence without contest. Stand firm, for in his look defiance lowers. He scarce had ended when those two approached and brief related whom they brought, where found, how busied, in what form and posture couched. To whom with stern regard thus Gabriel spake, Why hast thou, Satan, broke the bounds prescribed to thy transgressions, and disturbed the charge of others who approve not to transgress by thy example, but have power and right to question thy bold entrance on this place, employed, it seems, to violate sleep, and those whose dwelling God hath planted here in bliss.
To whom thus Satan with contemptuous brow, Gabriel, thou hast in heaven the esteem of wise, and such I held thee. But this question asked puts me in doubt. Lives there who loves his pain? Who would not, finding way, break loose from hell, though thither doomed? Thou wouldst thyself, no doubt, and boldly venture to whatever place farthest from pain, where thou mightst hope to change torment with ease, and soonest recompense dole with delight, which in this place I sought. To thee no reason, who knowest only good, but evil hast not tried, and wilt object his will who boundest. Let him sure bar his iron gates if he intends our stay in that dark durance. Thus much what was asked. The rest is true, they found me where they say, but that implies not violence or harm. Thus he in scorn. The warlike angel, moved disdainfully, half smiling, thus replied, Oh, loss of one in heaven to judge of wise, since Satan fell, whom folly overthrew, and now returns him from his prison escaped, gravely in doubt whether to hold them wise or not, who ask what boldness brought him hither, unlicensed from his bounds and hell prescribed. So wise he judges it is to fly from pain, however, and to escape his punishment. So judge thou still, presumptuous, till the wrath which thou incurst by flying meet thy flight sevenfold, and scourge that wisdom back to hell, which taught thee yet no better, that no pain can equal anger infinite provoked. But wherefore thou alone? Wherefore with thee came not all hell broke loose? Is pain to them less pain, less to be fled? Are thou then they less hardy to endure? Courageous chief, the first in flight from pain, hast thou alleged to thy deserted host this cause of flight? Thou surely hadst not come sole fugitive. To which the fiend thus answered, frowning stern, Not that I less endure or shrink from pain, insulting angel. Well thou knowest I stood thy fiercest, when in battle to thy aid the blasting volleyed thunder made all speed, and seconded thy else not dreaded spear. But still thy words at random, as before, argue thy inexperience. What behooves from hard essays and ill successes past? A faithful leader, not to hazard all through ways of danger by himself untried, I alone first undertook to wing the desolate abyss and spy this new created world, whereof in hell fame is not silent. Herein hope to find better abode, and my afflicted powers to settle here on earth or in mid-air. Though for possession put to try once more what thou and thy gay legions dare against, whose easier business were to serve their Lord high up in heaven with songs to him his throne, and practice distances to cringe, not fight. To whom the warrior angel soon replied, To say and straight and say, pretending first wise to flee pain, professing next the spy, argues no leader, but a liar tracked. Satan. And couldst thou faithful add, O name, O sacred name of faithfulness profaned? Faithful to whom? To thy rebellious crew? Army of fiends, fit body to fit head? Was this your discipline and faith engaged, your military obedience, to dissolve allegiance to the acknowledged power supreme? And thou, sly hypocrite, who now wouldst seem patron of liberty, who more than thou, once fond and cringed and servilely adored heaven's awful monarch, wherefore but in hope to dispossess him and thyself to reign? But mark what I read thee now. Avaunt, fly thither whence thou fleetst, if from this hour within these hallowed limits thou appear, back to the eternal infernal pit I drag thee chained, and sealed thee so, as henceforth not to scorn the facile gates of hell, too slightly barred.
So threatened he. But Satan to no threats gave heed, but waxing more in rage replied, Then when I am thy captive, talk of chains, proud limitary cherub. But ere then, far heavier load thyself expect to feel from my prevailing arm, though heaven's king ride on thy wings, and thou with thy compeers, used to the yoke, drawest his triumphant wheels in progress through the road of heaven star paved. While thus he spake, the angelic squadron bright turned fiery red, sharpening in mooned horns their phalanx, and began to hem him round with ported spears as thick as when a field of Ceres ripe for harvest waving bends her bearded grove of ears, which way the wind sways them. The careful plowman doubting stands, lest on the threshing floor his hopeful sheaves prove chaff. On the other side, Satan, alarmed, collecting all his might, dilated stood, like Tenerife or Atlas unremoved. His stature reached the sky, and on his crest sat horror plumed, nor wanted in his grasp what seemed both spear and shield. Now dreadful deeds might have ensued, nor only paradise in this commotion, but the starry cope of heaven perhaps, or all the elements at least had gone to rack, disturbed and torn with violence of this conflict, had not soon the eternal, to prevent such horrid fray, hung forth in heaven his golden scales. Yet seen betwixt Astrea and the Scorpion sign, wherein all things created first he weighed, the pendulous round earth with balanced air and counterpoise, now ponders all events, battles and realms. In these he put two weights, the sequel each of parting and of fight. The latter quick up flew and kicked the beam, which Gabriel spying, thus bespake the fiend. Satan, I know thy strength, and thou knowst mine, neither our own, but given. What folly then to boast what arms can do, since thine no more than heaven permits, nor mine, though doubled now to trample thee as mire. For proof, look up and read thy lot in yon celestial sign, where thou art weighed and shown how light, how weak if thou resist. The fiend looked up and knew his mounted scale aloft, nor more, but fled murmuring, and with him fled the shades of night.
Thank you. That was absolutely amazing. And I don't think that we have anyone yet here for the next book, book 5. Correct me if I'm wrong. We are ahead of ourselves by about 15 minutes, so I think we're expecting the team from New Zealand to start at 15:15. So I don't know if people would like to maybe just go and have a quick break if they're planning to come back, go and get a tea or coffee or something like that. But yeah, I'll make an announcement as soon as the New Zealand team are here.
Thank you.
Thank you. As well. Thanks, everyone. I think I may have spoken too soon. Michael, you're here, aren't you? So
I'm New Zealand team too.
okay, brilliant. Thank you.
As
So
am I.
Michael, I've just made you co-host. Are you waiting on any of your colleagues, or are you?
Yes,
but we are a little bit early.
Yeah, we've still got 3 or 4 to come.
Okay. Well, can I hand it over to you, Michael, then to make that announcement when you're ready to start?
Can't hear you, Michael. Yep, connecting to audio. There we go.
So Michael, yeah, if you make the announcement to everybody when you're ready to start, and then I think people are just going to take a quick break while you're waiting for your colleagues. Is that okay?
That's a brilliant background, Karen. You win the prize.
I'm jumping the gun just a little bit, but the spirit is there, you know.
It does look great.
And I love Martin. I love all his work, so.
I knew I should have consulted you.
Can you hear me now? Yes, success. I can see that everyone is on mute. Maybe we'll go with unmuting at not at large, but in sections. So, for example, at first, Paul and Dawn and I can probably work on unmute while the others remain. That way you don't have to fiddle with the settings so much. And then once we get to later on when John Hale comes in, we're still waiting on John. I'll text him shortly, and we can just kind of roll through it, eh? How does that sound? Does everyone want to test their microphone just to see if we're all working well?
How's my levels?
Oh, you sound really melodious,
Very old,
Karen.
old computer, so it's hanging in there.
I love your background, K-Mac.
Hello,
well,
can you hear me?
Yes,
hear me?
Dawn, we can hear you.
Good, good. I know. Do you note who's in the background here, though? Wrong one. The wrong man.
I can feel his eyes.
Yeah. What are you doing talking about this man? Reading from
You know, it's funny. I was in a secondhand shop this morning and they had a print of the young Milton portrait. standing there sitting, staring at me. I thought, how appropriate. PT, can we hear you? Are you?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
I think I'm talking now. Is that right?
You are. You're doing really
Okay.
well.
I have no background, but I do have a foreground.
Oh, gorgeous. Love it.
Yeah.
My wife suggested I do Adam naked from the waist up, but I thought not going to.
I was expecting a fig leaf, if I'm honest. I was quite sure that there'd be a fig leaf.
I didn't quite know what Eve was supposed to wear or not.
Wonderful. I'm just going to zip out here and I am going to email the others and see where they are.
We see John's here, John Hale's here. And
yes, hello everybody.
As well. Yay!
Hello, John. Do we have everyone? Michael Thames. Michael, can we test your microphone?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, really well done, Michael. And I think we're waiting. Lily, can we test your microphone and your visual as well, please?
Yes, bear with me. Can you hear me all right?
We certainly can.
Christ College's library behind me.
I love it. So do we have everyone? So we have PT, you're here, Dawn. Yep. John, can we test your microphone and your visual?
How do I test my microphone other than by talking to you?
There you go.
Are you hearing me? Do you read me?
We do, John, loud and clear.
Right.
I was just saying, we'll unmute in sections maybe. So at first it'll be me, Dawn, and Paul, and then just as we roll through and you're getting into your section, just feel free to unmute. Oh, there's Hannah. Hannah, would you like to try yours as well?
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you hear me all right?
I could mute.
No.
Well, as we are all here, we're ready to start on time. I wonder if they'd like us to start a couple minutes early so that we can keep to schedule.
Click on the bottom there.
With the authority or
yeah, please, yeah, you'd be very welcome to start now if you're all here. Lovely.
Great.
Just go ahead.
Should I start with just introducing everyone and then get into it?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome everyone. Kia ora koutou from New Zealand. It's my pleasure to introduce the cast. We'll be reading book 5 to you. Myself, Michael Kopp, I'm from the University of Otago. Paul Tankard, also from the University of Otago. Dawn Sanders with Shakespeare's Globe, New Zealand. Dr. John Hale, who will be God the Father from Otago. Hannah August from, she'll be reading Raphael from Massey University. Satan, Dr. Karen McLean, also from the University of Otago. God the Son, Michael Thames from Otago. And as Abdiel, Lily Granger from Wollongong. And without further ado, let's begin. Now morn her rosy steps in the eastern clime advancing, sowed the earth with orient pearl, when Adam waked, so custom, for his sleep was airy light from pure digestion bred and temperate vapors bland, which the only sound of leaves and fuming rills Aurora's fan lightly dispersed, and the shrill matin song of birds on every bough. So much the more his wonder was to find unwakened Eve with tresses discomposed and glowing cheek, as though on quiet rest. He on his side leaning half raised with looks of cordial love hung over her enamored, and beheld beauty, which whether waking or asleep shot forth peculiar graces. Then with voice mild, as when Zephyrus on Flora breeze, his hand soft touching, whispered thus. PT, you might be muted still.
I don't think I was.
You're good now, Paul.
Okay. Take two. Awake, my fairest, my espoused, my latest found, heaven's last best gift, my ever new delight. Awake, the morning shines, and the fresh field calls us. We lose the prime to mark how spring our tended plants, how blows the citron grove, what drops the myrrh, and what the balmy reed, how nature paints her colours, how the bee sits on the bloom extracting liquid sweet.
Such whispering waked her, but with startled eye on Adam, whom embracing, thus she spake.
O soul in whom my thoughts find all repose, my glory, my perfection, glad I see thy face, and morn returned. For I, this night, such night till this I never passed, have dreamed, if dreamed, not as I often want of thee, works of day past, or morrow's next design, but of offence and trouble, which my mind knew never till this irksome night. Methought close at mine ear one called me, forth to walk with gentle voice. I thought it thine. It said, Why sleep'st thou, Eve? Now is the pleasant time, the cool, the silent, save where silence yields to the night warbling bird, that now awake tunes sweetest his love-laboured song. Now reigns full-orbed the moon, and with more pleasing light, shadow sets off the face of things. In vain if none regard. Heaven waits with all his eyes, whom to behold but thee, nature's desire, in whose light all things joy with ravishment, attracted by thy beauty still to gaze. I rose as at thy call, but found thee not. And to find thee, I directed then my walk, and on, methought, alone I passed through ways that brought me to a sudden to a tree of indicted knowledge. There it seemed, much fairer to my fancy than by day, and, as I with wondering looked, stood beside it, one sharpest and winged, one like one of those from heaven, by us oft seen, his dewy locks distilled, ambrosia. On that tree he also gazed, and O fair plant, said he, with fruit surcharged, deigns none that ease thy load, and taste thy sweet, nor God, nor man, knowledge so despised, or envy, or what reserve forbids to taste, forbid who will, none shall me withhold longer than offered good. Why else sit here? This said, he paused not, but with venturous arm he plucked, he tasted, me damp horror chilled at such bold words, vouched with a deed so bold. But thus he overjoyed, O divine, fruit divine, sweet of thyself, but much more sweet, thus cropped, forbidden here, it seems, as onely fit for gods, yet able to make gods of men. And why not gods of men? Since good, the more communicated, more abundant grows, the author not impaired, but honoured more. Here, happy creature, fair angelic Eve, partake thou also. Happy though thou art, happier thou mayst be, worthier cannot not be. Taste this, and be henceforth among the gods, thyself a goddess, not to earth confined, but sometimes in the air, as we sometimes ascend to heaven, by merit thine, and see what life the gods live there, and such live thou. So saying, he drew nigh, and held me, even to my mouth of that same fruit held part, which he had plucked. This pleasant savoury smell so quickened appetite, that I, methought, could not but taste. Forthwith up to the clouds with him I flew, and underneath beheld the earth outstretched immense, a prospect wide and various. Wondering at my flight and change to this high exaltation, suddenly my guide was gone, and I, methought, sunk down and fell asleep. But oh, how glad I wait to find but this was but a dream.
Thus Eve her night related, and thus Adam answered, sad.
Best image of myself and dearer half, the trouble of thy thoughts this night in sleep affects me equally, nor can I like this uncouth dream of evil sprung, I fear. Yet evil whence? In thee can harbour none, created pure. But know that in the soul are many lesser faculties that serve reason as chief. Among these, fancy next her office holds, of all external things which the 5 watchful senses represent. She forms imaginations, airy shapes, which reason joining or disjoining frames all what we affirm or what deny, and call our knowledge or opinion. Then retires into her private cell where nature rests. Oft in her absence mimic fancy wakes to imitate her, but misjoining shapes wild work produces oft, and most in dreams, ill-matching words and deeds, long past or late. Some such resemblances methinks I find of our last evening's talk in this thy dream, but with addition strange. Yet be not sad. Evil into the mind of God or man may come and go so unapproved, and leave no spot or blame behind, which gives me hope that what in sleep thou didst abhor to dream, waking thou never wilt consent to do. Be not disheartened then, nor cloud those looks that want to be more cheerful and serene than when fair morning first smiles on the world. And let us to our fresh employments rise, among the groves, the fountains, and the flowers that open now their choicest bosom smells, reserved from night, and kept for thee in store.
So cheered he his fair spouse, and she was cheered, but silently a gentle tear let fall from either eye, and wiped them with her hair. 2 other precious drops that ready stood, each in their crystal sleuth, he ere they fell, kissed as the gracious signs of sweet remorse and pious awe, that feared to have offended. So all was cleared, and to the field they haste. But first, from under the shady arborous roof, soon as they forth were come to open sight of dayspring and the sun, who scarce uprisen with wheels yet hovering o'er the ocean brim, shot parallel to the earth his dewy ray, discovering in wide landscape all the east of paradise and Eden's happy plains. Lowly they bowed adoring and began their orisons, each morning duly paid in various style, for neither various style nor holy rapture wanted they to praise their Maker, in fit strains pronounced or sung unmeditated. Such prompt eloquence flowed from their lips, in prose or numerous verse, more tunable than needed lute or harp to added more sweetness, and they thus began.
These are thy glorious works, parent of good, almighty, thine this universal frame. Thus wondrous fair, thyself how wondrous then?
Unspeakable, who sittest above these heavens, to us invisible or dimly seen in these thy lowest works. Yet these declare thy goodness beyond thought and power divine. Speak ye, who best can tell, ye sons of light. Angels, for ye be